She was supposed to be a nobody, a ghost living in the shadows of Brooklyn. But one slip-up, one single lullaby sung in a dialect that hasn't been spoken in our circles for 20 years, changed everything. The moment she opened her mouth to comfort that crying child, she didn't just silence the crowd. She woke up the devil. My name is Dominic Valenti, and I thought I knew every player in this city. But I didn't know her. And now, I'm going to burn the city down until I find out exactly whose daughter she really is. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a war. The San Gennaro Festival in Little Italy was a sensory overload of the worst kind for a man like Dominic Valenti. The air smelled of frying dough, sausage, and cheap perfume. The noise was a wall of sound, shouting vendors, carnival music, and the collective roar of tourists pretending to be locals for a day. Dominic moved through the crowd like a shark cutting through a school of fish. People parted instinctively, sensing the predator in their midst, even if they didn't recognize the tailored charcoal suit or the two hulking shadows, Matteo and Rocco, flanking him. "We shouldn't be here, boss," Matteo grumbled, his eyes scanning the rooftops. "The Russos are getting bold. Open ground is dangerous." "The Russos are sloppy," Dominic replied, his voice a low rumble that barely rose above the din. "If we stop walking our own streets because of a few threats, we've already lost." He stopped at a corner, lighting a cigarette, his eyes bored. He was 32 years old, the don of the Valenti crime family, and he felt 100. He had everything: money, power, fear. But he was bored. It was all just numbers and violence now. Then the screaming started. It wasn't the usual festival scream of delight. It was the terrified, high-pitched shriek of a child. Dominic frowned. He didn't care about children, generally speaking, but the noise was piercing. 20 feet away, a small boy, maybe 4 years old, was having a meltdown. He was lost, alone, and terrified. A circle of concerned tourists had formed, but no one was touching him. They were all just staring, filming with their phones, useless. "Where is his mother?" Rocco muttered. Then she appeared. A woman in a beige trench coat pushed through the circle. She wasn't striking at first glance. Brown hair pulled back in a messy bun, no makeup, glasses that looked too big for her face. She looked like a librarian or a tired student. She knelt in the dirt, right in front of the screaming boy. She tried English first. "Hey, sweetie, it's okay." The boy didn't stop. He was hyperventilating now. She hesitated, looking around. Seeing no parents, she leaned in closer. Her hand hovered over the boy's shoulder, gentle but firm. And then she spoke. It wasn't English. It wasn't the standard Italian you learned in school. "Zito, picciriddu, lu suli è calato, e a luna spunta." "Hush, little one. The sun has set, and the moon is rising." Dominic froze. The cigarette burned his fingers, but he didn't drop it. The dialect was thick, ancient, and guttural. It was Catanian, specifically from the foothills of Mount Etna. It was the dialect of his grandmother, the dialect of the old country, the dialect of the families that had been wiped out in the purge of '98. The woman continued, her voice dropping into a melodic, throaty hum. "Dormi, dormi, figiu bedu." The boy stopped crying. It was instantaneous. He stared at her, mesmerized by the rhythm of the words, a language that perhaps his own nonna spoke, or perhaps he just felt the raw authority in her tone. It was the tone of a woman who had seen fear and knew how to crush it. Dominic took a step forward, entranced. "Boss?" Matteo warned. Dominic ignored him. He watched as the woman wiped the boy's face with a handkerchief. She looked up, scanning the crowd. For a split second, her eyes met Dominic's. They were green. Not a soft, mossy green, but the sharp, dangerous green of broken glass. Recognition flickered in her eyes, not of him specifically, but of what he was. She saw the suit, the posture, the men behind him. She knew. She immediately looked down, breaking the connection. A frantic woman, the mother, burst through the crowd a second later, grabbing the child. "Oh my God, Leo, I turned around for 1 second." While the mother was distracted, the woman in the beige coat stood up. She didn't wait for thanks. She didn't smile. She turned on her heel and vanished into the throng of people, moving with a speed and fluidity that betrayed her mousy appearance. Dominic threw his cigarette down and crushed it with his heel. "Matteo? Yeah, boss. You saw her. The girl? Yeah, helped the kid. She spoke Catanian dialect, perfect accent, old-world phrasing." Matteo frowned. "So, maybe her nonna taught her." "No," Dominic said, his eyes fixed on the spot where she had disappeared. "Young women in New York don't speak that dialect unless they were raised in the life." And she looked at me. "Matteo." She clocked the security detail in half a second. "She's not a civilian." Dominic turned to Rocco. "Pull the street cam footage from the corner bodega. I want a face scan. I want a name." "You think she's a spy for the Russos?" Rocco asked. Dominic buttoned his jacket. "I think she's a ghost, and I want to know who she's hiding from. Find everything about her. Where she sleeps, what she eats, who she calls. Everything." 3 days later, Dominic sat in his office at the top of the Valenti Tower. The city of New York was spread out beneath him like a circuit board, but his focus was entirely on the manila folder on his mahogany desk. "You're telling me," Dominic said, his voice dangerously quiet, "that she doesn't exist?" Matteo shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He was the best investigator on the East Coast. He didn't like failing. "I'm telling you she's good, Dom. Too good. Her name is Sophia Miller. She works at a dusty archive in the basement of the public library on 42nd Street, restores old books, lives in a studio apartment in Queens, pays her rent in cash orders, no credit cards, no Instagram, no Facebook, no digital footprint. Social security number? It's real," Matteo said, "but the history is thin. It was issued 5 years ago. Before that, nothing. It's like she popped into existence at age 22. Dominic opened the file. A grainy photo of Sophia leaving her apartment building stared back at him. She was wearing the same oversized glasses, head down, shoulders hunched. 5 years ago, Dominic mused. That was the year the Falcone family fell in Chicago. "You think she's a Falcone?" Matteo asked skeptically. "They're all dead. The feds confirmed it. House fire. Bodies burn, Matteo. Teeth melt. DNA gets corrupted. If you want it to disappear, a fire is the best way to do it." Dominic tapped the photo. "She speaks the dialect of the inner circle. She avoids cameras. Look at this angle. She's deliberately turning her face away from the CCTV. She pays cash. She's running." "If she's running, why stop to help a kid?" "Because instinct is harder to kill than a man," Dominic murmured. "She has a soft spot. That's how we catch her." "We snatch her?" "No." Dominic stood up, adjusting his cuffs. "We don't snatch. If she is who I think she is, she'll have contingencies, traps. If we grab her, she'll clam up or fight. We need to flush her out. We need to see what she does when she's cornered." "How do we do that?" Dominic smiled, a cold, predatory curve of his lips. "I have a collection of rare Sicilian manuscripts that need restoring. Extremely valuable. Extremely delicate. I think it's time the Valenti family made a donation to the public library. Specifically, to the restoration department." The basement of the public library smelled of dust, glue, and decaying paper. For Sophia, it was the smell of safety. Here, surrounded by the words of dead men, she didn't have to look over her shoulder. She adjusted her glasses, plain glass, she didn't actually need them, and carefully applied a layer of wheat starch paste to the spine of an 18th century ledger. Her hands were steady, but her heart was still racing from the festival 3 days ago. Stupid, she chided herself. Stupid, stupid. She had slipped. Seeing that little boy, hearing the raw terror in his breath, it had triggered a memory of a cold basement in Palermo, hiding under a table while men with guns shouted upstairs, her mother singing that exact song to keep her quiet. She had let the mask slip, and he had seen it. Dominic Valenti. She knew his face. Everyone in the underworld knew the face of the Wolf of New York. She had seen him watching her. She had felt his gaze like a physical touch, heavy and possessive. He probably forgot about it. 10 minutes later, she told herself. He's a don. He has bigger problems than a random woman at a street fair. The intercom on her desk buzzed, making her jump. She nearly knocked over her glue pot. Sophia? It was Mrs. Gable, the head archivist. Can you come up to the main atrium? We have a VIP donor. He specifically requested our lead restoration expert. Sophia's stomach dropped. I'm really busy with the erratic papers, Mrs. Gable. Can't David do it? No, dear. He asked for the woman who handles the delicate cases. Come up now. Don't keep him waiting. Sophia took a deep breath. It's fine, it's just a donor. Rich old men like to feel important. She took off her apron, smoothed down her grey cardigan, and walked to the elevator. As the numbers ticked up, she mentally rehearsed her persona. Sophia Miller. Boring. Shy. A little awkward. Not Sophia Rinaldi. Not the daughter of the ghost. The elevator doors opened. The main atrium was empty, save for Mrs. Gable fluttering nervously around a group of men standing near the center display. There were 4 of them. 3 were clearly bodyguards, thick necks, earpieces, suits that struggled to contain their bulk. The 4th man stood with his back to her, examining a painting. He was tall, his shoulders broad under a navy suit that cost more than her entire life's earnings. Ah, here she is, Mrs. Gable chirped. The man turned around. Sophia's breath hitched in her throat. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. It was him, Dominic Valenti. He looked even more devastating up close. His features were carved from marble, harsh and beautiful, but it was his eyes that terrified her. They locked onto hers with a terrifying intensity, stripping away the cardigan, the fake glasses, the mousy demeanor. Mr. Valenti, Mrs. Gable said, breathless. This is Sophia Miller, our best hand. Dominic stepped forward. He didn't offer his hand to shake. He just stared. Miss Miller, he said. His voice was like dark velvet wrapped around a razor blade. I've heard you have a talent for preserving things that others have forgotten. Sophia forced herself to swallow. She looked at his chin, avoiding direct eye contact. I just do my job, sir. Modest, Dominic said, taking a slow step closer. He invaded her personal space, smelling of tobacco and expensive sandalwood. I have a job for you, Sophia, a private collection. It requires a delicate touch and discretion. I can't do private work, Sophia stammered, stepping back. I'm strictly employed by the library. I've already spoken to the board, Dominic said, never breaking eye contact. They've agreed to loan you to me for 2 weeks, in exchange for a very generous endowment. He reached into his jacket pocket. Sophia flinched, her muscles tensing to run or fight. Dominic noticed the flinch. A spark of satisfaction lit up his eyes. He slowly pulled out a small, leather-bound book. He held it out to her. "Take it." She reached out, her hand trembling slightly. She took the book. It was old. The leather was cracked. She opened it. It wasn't a book. It was a hollowed-out box. Inside, resting on red velvet, was a silver locket. Sophia gasped. She snapped the book shut, her head snapping up to meet his eyes. "Recognize it?" Dominic whispered, leaning down so only she could hear. It was her mother's locket, the one she had sold to a pawnbroker in Jersey 3 years ago when she was desperate for cash to buy a fake ID. "I don't know what this is," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Don't lie to me, Pichiridu," Dominic said, using the exact word she had used with the child. The color drained from her face. "You have 2 choices, Sophia," Dominic said, straightening up and buttoning his jacket. "You can walk out the front door with me, get in my car, and tell me the truth. Or—" He glanced around the empty library. "My men can burn this place to the ground with you inside it. Just like the house in Chicago." Sophia's heart stopped. He knew about Chicago. She looked at Mrs. Gable, who was smiling obliviously in the distance. She looked at the exits, blocked by his men. She looked back at Dominic. He held out his hand, palm up, a command. "Who are you really?" he asked. Sophia tightened her grip on the fake book. The mousy librarian vanished. She straightened her spine. She took off her glasses and put them in her pocket. When she looked at him again, the fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard hatred. "If I go with you," she said, her voice steady and clear, "I drive. I don't get in trunks." Dominic's smile widened. It was the smile of a man who had finally found a worthy opponent. "Deal." The air outside the library was heavy with the scent of impending rain. A black cavalcade of armored SUVs waited at the curb, engines idling like sleeping beasts. Dominic gestured to the rear door of the middle vehicle. "Get in." Sophia stood her ground on the sidewalk, the wind whipping strands of hair across her face. "You said I could drive." Dominic stopped, his hand on the doorframe. He looked at her, really looked at her, with a mixture of amusement and annoyance. "I said deal to get you out of the building without a scene. But let's be realistic, Pichiridu. This is a shimmering black beast with $300,000 of armor plating and a V12 engine. You drive a Honda Civic. Get in the back." "I drove Getaway for my father when I was 16, she snapped, the words slipping out before she could check them. Silence stretched between them. The bodyguards, Rocco and Matteo, stiffened. Dominic's eyes darkened. He stepped closer, towering over her. 16, he repeated softly. "Most girls are learning parallel parking at 16. You were outrunning sirens." He opened the door wider. "Get inside, Sophia, before the Russos realize the king is out on the board." She hesitated, then slid into the leather interior. It smelled of him, sandalwood and cold danger. Dominic slid in beside her. The door shut with a heavy pressurized thud, sealing them off from the noise of New York City. "To the penthouse," Dominic ordered the driver. As the convoy pulled away, merging aggressively into the mid-afternoon traffic, Dominic didn't look at her. He pulled a crystal decanter from a hidden compartment and poured 2 fingers of amber liquid. "Whiskey?" he offered. "I don't drink with kidnappers." "I prefer the term host." He took a sip, the ice clinking against the glass. "So, let's talk about the locket. You sold it 3 years ago in Jersey. The pawnbroker, a man named Sal, said a girl came in looking like she'd crawled out of a grave. Shaking. Crying." Sophia stared out the tinted window. "Sal talks too much." "Sal is dead," Dominic said casually. "Not by my hand. The Russos found him last week. They were looking for something. Or someone." Maybe you. Sophia's hands clenched in her lap. I'm nobody. Just a librarian. Stop it. Dominic slammed the glass down on the console, the sound cracking the tension like a whip. He turned to her, his blue eyes blazing. The dialect, the locket, the getaway driving, the way you check the exits in every room you enter. You are a Falcone. Don't insult my intelligence. Sophia turned to face him, her expression hardening into stone. The Falcones are dead. They burned in the Barrington House fire. Everyone knows that. They found 5 bodies, Dominic counted. There were 6 people in the house that night. The youngest daughter, Sophia. She was 17. He reached out, his fingers brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. His touch was electric, terrifyingly gentle. You didn't die, did you, Sophia? My name, she whispered, leaning in so close their breaths mingled, is none of your damn business. Crash. The world exploded. The SUV violently lurched sideways as a heavy truck slammed into the passenger side. Glass shattered, spiderwebbing but holding thanks to the reinforced laminate. The car spun, metal screaming against asphalt, before slamming into a concrete divider. Dominic was thrown against the door, but his arm shot out instantly, pinning Sophia to the seat, protecting her head from the impact. Down! Get down! He roared. Gunfire erupted instantly. Pop, 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 pop. Automatic weapons fire hammered against the armored glass. Ambush! The driver screamed, blood trickling from his nose. We're boxed in. 2 trucks. Dominic pulled a Sig Sauer P226 from his holster in one fluid motion. He kicked the door open, using it as a shield. Matteo, cover left! Rocco, get the girl out! I don't need help! Sophia yelled. She didn't cower. She didn't scream. As Dominic fired into the street, taking down a masked gunman charging the car, Sophia unbuckled her seatbelt. She saw the driver was slumped over, unconscious or dead. She scrambled over the center console. What the hell are you doing? Dominic shouted, reloading. Getting us out of here! Sophia yelled back. She shoved the driver's body aside, gripping the steering wheel. Her hands, which had been restoring delicate paper an hour ago, were now white-knuckled on the leather. The SUV was pinned against the divider. A black van had pulled up behind them, men spilling out with assault rifles. Dominic, get in! She screamed. Dominic looked at her, stunned for a fraction of a second. Then he saw the fire in her eyes. It wasn't the panic of a civilian. It was the focus of a soldier. He dove back into the passenger seat. Hold on! Sophia grit her teeth. She threw the heavy SUV into reverse. Instead of trying to speed away, she floored the gas backwards. The SUV slammed into the black van behind them with the force of a battering ram. The impact crunched the van's radiator, sending steam hissing into the air and knocking the gunmen off their feet. Sophia slammed the gear into drive. Clear the lane! Dominic leaned out the window, firing 3 precise shots. Bang, bang, bang. 3 tires on the truck blocking their front blew out. Sophia floored it. The SUV roared, its engine whining in protest as she scraped past the disabled truck, metal sparks showering the street like fireworks. She fishtailed onto the open avenue, weaving through terrified traffic. Take the bridge, Dominic commanded, checking the rearview mirror. They have bikes coming up fast. I know the route, Sophia shouted. She drove like a demon. She drifted the heavy armored vehicle around a corner, clipping a newsstand but maintaining speed. 2 motorcycles appeared in the mirror, riders raising submachine guns. Head down! Sophia yelled. She slammed on the brakes. The bikers, expecting a chase, couldn't react in time. They flew past the SUV. As they passed, Dominic took them out with 2 clean shots through the side window. The bikes skidded across the pavement in a tangle of sparks and metal. Sophia accelerated again, merging onto the bridge, leaving the chaos behind. Her breathing was heavy, her chest heaving, but her hands were steady. Dominic stared at her. He watched the way she checked the mirrors, the way she anticipated the traffic flow, the cold calculation in her green eyes. He slowly holstered his gun. A slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. "You drive well," he said, his voice low. Sophia glanced at him, her hair wild, adrenaline flushing her cheeks. "I told you, I don't get in trunks." The Valenti estate was not a house. It was a fortress, disguised as a mansion. Located on the cliffs of Long Island, it was surrounded by 12-foot walls, cameras, and enough armed guards to invade a small country. Sophia parked the battered SUV in the circular driveway. Her adrenaline was fading, replaced by a cold, aching exhaustion. Her hand started to tremble on the wheel. Dominic got out and walked around to her door. He opened it. "Can you walk?" he asked. There was no mockery in his voice now, only a strange, intense curiosity. "I'm fine," she said, though her knees buckled as she stepped onto the gravel. Dominic caught her, his arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against his hard chest. For a moment, she let herself lean on him. He felt solid, indestructible. "You're not fine," he murmured. "You're in shock. Come." He didn't drag her. He guided her. They walked through the massive double doors, past the marble foyer, and up a sweeping staircase. The house was beautiful, cold, modern, and expensive, but empty. It lacked the warmth of the home she had lost. He led her into a bedroom that was bigger than her entire apartment. It had a balcony overlooking the ocean, a king-sized bed with silk sheets, and a private bathroom. "Stay here," Dominic said. "There are clothes in the closet. Take a shower. Wash the blood off." He pointed to a smear of red on her cardigan. It wasn't hers. It was the driver's. Sophia looked down at the blood and felt bile rise in her throat. She nodded mutely. Dominic walked to the door. He paused, his hand on the knob. "Sophia." She looked up. "Thank you," he said, "for saving my life." Then he stepped out, and she heard the distinct click of a heavy lock sliding into place. She was a prisoner, a guest in a golden cage. 2 hours later, Sophia emerged from the bathroom. She was scrubbed clean, her skin pink from the scalding water. She had found a silk robe in the closet, black, obviously meant for a woman, but it still smelled faintly of the store. Brand new, unworn. She went to the balcony doors, locked. She checked the windows, reinforced glass. She was pacing the room when the lock clicked again. Dominic entered. He had changed too. He wore black slacks and a crisp white shirt, the top buttons undone, sleeves rolled up to reveal muscular forearms covered in faint scars and tattoos. He was carrying a tray with 2 plates of pasta and a bottle of wine. "Carbonara," he said, setting the tray on a small table by the fireplace. "My mother's recipe. I made it myself." Sophia stopped pacing. "You cook?" "I find chopping vegetables therapeutic. It keeps me from killing people." He pulled out a chair. "Sit. Eat." Sophia sat. She was starving. The smell of the guanciale and pecorino cheese was intoxicating. She took a bite. It was perfect. "You're trying to disarm me," she said, taking a sip of the wine. "Good food, nice clothes, acting like a gentleman." "I am a gentleman," Dominic said, watching her eat. "Most of the time." He leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine glass. "I ran the prints from the steering wheel, Sophia." Sophia froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. "And?" "And nothing came up," Dominic said softly. "Which is impossible, unless your records were scrubbed by the feds, or unless you never existed in the system to begin with until 5 years ago." He leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his eyes locking onto hers. I know who you are, Sophia Falcone. I remember you now. I saw you once, at a gala in 1997. You were 12. You were wearing a white dress, and you punched the mayor's son in the nose because he pulled your hair. A ghost of a smile touched Sophia's lips. He deserved it. He was a brat. Yes, he was. Dominic's expression turned serious. Why did you run? After the fire. The Valentis and the Falcones were rivals, yes, but we weren't at war. My father would have taken you in, protected you. Your father. Sophia laughed, a bitter, jagged sound. Your father is the one who ordered the fire, Dominic. The room went dead silent. The fire in the grate crackled. Dominic stared at her. That's a lie. Is it? Sophia stood up, her anger rising. I was there. I was in the basement. I heard the men who poured the gasoline. They were laughing. One of them said, Don Valenti sends his regards. I heard it, Dominic. Clear as day. Dominic stood up too, knocking his chair back. My father was a ruthless man, but he had a code. He didn't kill women and children. He didn't burn houses. Codes change when money is involved, Sophia spat, or territory, or power. My father died 2 weeks after that fire, Dominic said, his voice cold. Heart attack. Convenient, Sophia whispered. Dominic walked around the table. He crowded her against the wall, his hands planting on the plaster on either side of her head. He didn't touch her, but his body heat radiated against her. I didn't kill your family, Dominic hissed, and I don't believe my father did either, but someone did. Someone who wanted our families to destroy each other. Why should I believe you? Sophia challenged, tilting her chin up. You're a mob boss. You lie for a living. Because, Dominic said, his voice dropping to a gravelly whisper, the Russos attacked me today, and they were looking for you. If I ordered the hit on your family, why would I be protecting you now? Why would the Russos be hunting us both? Sophia hesitated. The logic was sound. If the Valentis wiped out the Falcones, Dominic would have just finished the job in the library. He wouldn't have brought her here. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. I need the Falcone ledger, Dominic said. Sophia's eyes widened. I know it exists, Dominic pressed. Your father kept a black book, codes, account numbers, routes, but more importantly, blackmail on every judge, politician, and rival boss in New York. That book is the only thing that can stop the war that's coming. The Russos want it. That's why they're hunting you. I don't have it, Sophia lied. You don't have it, Dominic agreed. But you know where it is, and you're the only one who can read the cipher. He moved his hand, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. His touch was no longer aggressive, it was imploring. Help me find it, Sophia. Help me destroy the Russos. I will give you the head of the man who actually lit the match that night. I promise you this on my blood. Sophia looked into his eyes. She saw the ruthlessness, yes, but she also saw truth. And beneath that, something else. A hunger, a loneliness that matched her own. She took a deep breath. I'll help you, she said, on one condition. Name it. When it's over, she said, you let me go. No questions asked. I disappear again. Dominic looked at her lips, then back to her eyes. He hesitated for a long moment. The thought of letting her go clearly bothered him more than it should have. Deal, he lied. He knew in that moment he was never letting her go. The rain had turned from a drizzle to a torrential downpour by the time they reached Queens. The sky was a bruised purple, the city lights reflecting off the slick asphalt like spilled oil. They had ditched the battered SUV 3 blocks from the bridge and switched to a nondescript sedan Dominic kept in a private garage in Astoria. Now they were parked outside the wrought-iron gates of St. Michael's Cemetery. "This is it?" Dominic asked, killing the engine. The wipers stopped, leaving the windshield blurred with rain. "My mother is buried here," Sophia said, her voice tight. "Along with my father and brothers. It's the family crypt, the only place the feds couldn't seize." "And the ledger?" "Buried with the only person my father trusted." Dominic looked at her, understanding dawning on him. "Your mother." They moved through the cemetery in silence. Dominic led the way, a flashlight in one hand and his gun in the other. Sophia followed close behind, clutching the oversized coat he had given her. The tombstones rose around them like crooked teeth, grey and imposing in the gloom. The Falcone mausoleum was a grand structure of white marble, now stained with moss and age. The name Falcone was carved above the door, defiant even in ruin. Sophia produced a key from a chain around her neck, the one thing she had never pawned. She unlocked the heavy bronze grate. It groaned, a sound of metal complaining against rust, echoing loudly in the quiet night. Inside, the air was cold and smelled of stone and dry flowers. Sophia walked to the central sarcophagus. It was ornate, topped with a weeping angel. She ran her hand over the marble nameplate. Maria Falcone, beloved wife and mother. "Help me move the lid," Sophia whispered. Dominic hesitated. Desecrating a grave was bad luck, even for a man who killed for a living. "Sophia, it's not in the coffin," she said quickly. "There's a false bottom in the stone base. My father built it. Mum knew. She told me before the fire, just in case." Dominic holstered his gun and gripped the heavy marble lip of the base. Sophia grabbed the other side. "On 3, Dominic grunted. 1, 2, 3. They heaved. Stone ground against stone. A hidden compartment was revealed in the hollow of the plinth. Inside lay a thick, leather-bound book wrapped in oilcloth to protect it from the damp. Sophia reached in and pulled it out. She unwrapped it. The Falcone ledger. "We have it," she breathed, clutching the book to her chest. The names, the accounts, everything needed to bury the Russos. Click. The sound of a hammer cocking back echoed from the entrance of the mausoleum. Dominic spun around, shielding Sophia with his body, his hand flying to his weapon. "Don't!" A voice sneered from the darkness. 3 figures stepped out of the rain and into the crypt. They were dressed in tactical gear, night vision goggles pushed up on their foreheads. In the center stood a man Dominic recognized instantly. Jimmy the Rat Calloway, a low-level enforcer for the Russo family. "Fancy meeting the King of New York in a boneyard," Jimmy grinned, his teeth yellow in the flashlight beam. He had an MP5 submachine gun leveled at Dominic's chest. "And look, he brought the ghost, Princess." "How did you find us?" Dominic demanded, his voice steady, though his mind was racing. Only 2 people knew they were coming here. Matteo and Rocco. "A little birdie told us," Jimmy laughed. "A birdie who sings very close to your ear, Dom. Now hand over the book, and maybe I'll make it quick." Dominic calculated the odds. 3 men. Automatic weapons. He had a pistol and 12 rounds. Sophia was unarmed. The distance was 10 feet. Impossible odds. "Give him the book, Sophia," Dominic said slowly. Sophia looked at him, betrayal flashing in her eyes. "What?" "Give it to him. It's not worth dying for." Sophia hesitated. She looked at Jimmy, then at the book. Slowly, she stepped out from behind Dominic, extending the ledger. Jimmy's greed got the better of him. He took a step forward, his gun dipping slightly as he reached for the prize. That was the mistake Dominic was waiting for. "Now," Dominic roared. He didn't go for his gun. He kicked the heavy marble lid they had just moved. It slid off the plinth and crashed onto the floor with a sound like a bomb going off, cracking the stone tiles. The noise startled the gunman. In that split second of distraction, Dominic tackled Sophia, driving her to the ground behind the sarcophagus, just as Jimmy opened fire. Bullets chipped the marble angel above them, sending shards of stone raining down. "Stay down!" Dominic yelled. He rolled onto his back and fired blindly over the sarcophagus. Bang! Bang! A scream. One of the gunmen went down. "Suppressing fire!" Jimmy screamed. The other two unleashed a hail of bullets, pinning Dominic and Sophia behind the grave. "We're trapped!" Sophia coughed, dust choking the air. Dominic looked around. The mausoleum had no back exit. But he saw something. The stained glass window high on the rear wall. It was old, the lead fragile. "Can you climb?" Dominic asked, reloading his magazine. "Yes. I'm going to draw their fire. You climb the angel, break the window, and get out. Run to the car." "I'm not leaving you," Sophia shouted over the gunfire. "You have the book!" Dominic grabbed her shoulders, his eyes fierce. "This isn't a negotiation, Sophia. If they get that book, we both die anyway. Go." He kissed her hard on the forehead, a goodbye, and then surged up. Dominic Valenti stepped out from cover, firing with terrifying precision. He took a bullet to the shoulder almost immediately, the impact spinning him around. But he didn't stop. He put 2 rounds into the second gunman's chest. Jimmy shrieked, diving behind a pillar. Sophia scrambled up the marble angel. She used the wings as leverage, grabbed the iron frame of the window, and kicked the glass out. It shattered into the rainy night. She pulled herself through the opening, tumbling onto the wet grass outside. She heard more gunshots from inside, then silence. "Dominic!" she screamed. She ran back to the iron gate, peering inside. Jimmy was on the ground, bleeding out. Dominic was slumped against her mother's tomb, clutching his left shoulder, his suit jacket soaked in blood. But he was breathing. His gun was still in his hand. He looked up at her, pain etched on his face, and managed a crooked grin. "I told you, to run to the car." Sophia didn't run to the car. She ran to him. The safe house was a brownstone in Brooklyn, officially owned by a shell company listed under a dead dentist's name. It was dusty, but it had a fully stocked medical kit. Sophia cut the shirt off Dominic's shoulder. The bullet had passed through the fleshy part of the deltoid. Clean entry, clean exit. No bone, no artery. But he had lost a lot of blood. "This is going to hurt," she said, threading a surgical needle. She had doused the wound in iodine. Dominic sat on the edge of the bathroom tub, his face pale, sweat beading on his forehead. He took a swig of whiskey straight from the bottle. "Do it." Sophia worked quickly. Her hands, so skilled at restoring delicate paper, were just as adept at stitching flesh. She had learned this too in the years on the run. "You saved me," she said softly, tying off the suture. "You came back," Dominic replied, his voice gritty. "You could have run with the book. You could have sold it, bought a new life." "I'm done running," Sophia said. She taped a bandage over the wound and stepped back. Dominic stood up. He swayed slightly, and she reached out to steady him. His good hand came up to cup her face. The air in the small bathroom grew thick, charged with the scent of antiseptic, rain, and raw survival. He looked at her not as a pawn, not as a Falcone, but as the only person in the world who understood the weight of the life they lived. "Sophia," he breathed. He kissed her. It wasn't like the kiss in the crypt. This was hungry, desperate, acclaiming. Sophia melted into him, her hands tangling in his damp hair. For a moment, the war outside didn't exist. There was only the heat of his skin and the beat of his heart against hers. He pulled back, resting his forehead against hers. "We have to look at the book." Sophia nodded, breathless. "Yes." They moved to the living room. Sophia opened the ledger on the coffee table. The pages were filled with columns of numbers and dates, written in a complex alphanumeric cipher. "It's the Visionaire cipher," Sophia said, her finger tracing the lines. "But modified. The keyword changes every 10 pages based on the Catholic liturgical calendar. Can you read it? Give me 10 minutes." Dominic paced the room, nursing his shoulder while Sophia worked. She grabbed a notepad and began decoding the entries from 5 years ago, the weeks leading up to the fire. Suddenly, she stopped. Her pen dropped to the floor. "What is it?" Dominic asked, sensing the shift in her energy. Sophia looked up, her face draining of color. She looked sick. "The payment," she whispered. 3 days before the fire, my father paid $2 million to a secure account in the Cayman Islands. "Payment for what?" The entry says, "Assurance of safety, exit strategy." Sophia's voice trembled. "My father wasn't killed in a surprise attack, Dominic. He was betrayed. He thought he was paying for safe passage out of the country. Who did he pay?" Sophia pointed to the decoded text. "Recipient code, CV Cons." Dominic froze. The room seemed to tilt. CV, Carlo Valenti, his uncle, his consigliere, the man who had raised him after his own father died, the man who sat at his right hand at every Sunday dinner. "And," Sophia continued, tears welling in her eyes, the entry below it. "Access codes to Barrington House provided to CV." "No," Dominic muttered, backing away. Carlo hated the war. He always pushed for peace. "He pushed for peace by eliminating the competition," Sophia said, standing up. "He took my father's money to promise us safety, then used the access codes to let the hit squad in to burn us alive. And he framed your father for it, so the war would end, and he could consolidate power under the Valenti name." "He sold us both out," Dominic realized, his voice turning into a growl. "He played both sides. He's been feeding the Russos info on me to keep the conflict simmering, just enough to keep me distracted while he skims off the top." "Dominic," Sophia said, "if Carlo is the leak, then he knows we're alive. He knows we have the book, the ambush at the cemetery. He told the Russos where to find us." Dominic's face hardened into a mask of pure, cold fury. The pain in his shoulder was forgotten. "My uncle is hosting a dinner tonight," Dominic said, checking his watch. "The Feast of San Gennaro closes tonight. All the capos will be there. Bamonte's restaurant in Williamsburg. He thinks I'm dead or running. What are you going to do?" Dominic walked to the duffel bag of weapons he had stashed in the hallway. He pulled out a fresh magazine and racked the slide of his pistol. "I'm going to dinner," he said. He looked at Sophia. "You stay here. It's too dangerous." "No," Sophia said, walking over and picking up the ledger. She held it like a shield. "This is my story, too. I'm the proof. Without me, it's just words in a book. If you want to take down Carlo, you need the ghost to walk into the room." Dominic looked at her. He saw the terrified girl from the festival was gone. In her place was a queen, ready to reclaim her throne. "Okay," Dominic said. "Dress up. If we're going to crash a party, we're going to look like royalty." The restaurant was closed to the public. The air was thick with cigar smoke and the smell of roasted veal. At the head of the long table sat Carlo Valenti, a man in his 60s with silver hair and a benevolent smile. He raised a glass of wine. "To family," Carlo said, "and to the memory of my nephew, Dominic. It seems the Russos finally caught up to him. A tragedy. But the business must go on." The captains around the table murmured their assent, though some looked uneasy. "We must strike back," one capo said. "Patience," Carlo soothed. "We must not be rash. We will negotiate a truce." Slam! The double doors of the restaurant burst open. Silence descended instantly. Every head turned. Dominic Valenti stood in the doorway. He was wearing a fresh black tuxedo, his arm in a sling, but looking very much alive, and on his arm, wearing a stunning emerald green dress that Dominic had acquired from a boutique on the way, was Sophia. She looked radiant and lethal. "Dominic?" Carlo dropped his wine glass. It shattered, red wine spreading like blood on the white tablecloth. We heard reports. The cemetery. You heard I was dead, Uncle?" Dominic walked slowly into the room, Sophia matching his stride. The guards at the door didn't stop them. They were too shocked to move. "Reports are often unreliable," Dominic said, his voice projecting to every corner of the room, especially when they come from rats. He stopped at the foot of the table. "Gentlemen," Dominic said to his captains, "I'd like to introduce you to someone. You all remember the Falcone family? The ones who burned?" He gestured to Sophia. "This is Sophia Falcone, and she has brought some light reading for us all." Sophia slammed the ledger onto the table. Carlo's face went white. He signaled to his personal bodyguards. "Kill them! They're imposters! Traitors!" 3 of Carlo's men drew their guns, but Dominic was faster. He didn't draw a gun. He snapped his fingers. From the kitchen, from the shadows, from the bar, Matteo, Rocco, and 6 other loyal soldiers emerged, weapons raised. They had been waiting. "It's over, Carlo," Dominic said softly. "The Russos didn't kill the Falcones. You did. And you tried to kill me tonight." Dominic picked up a steak knife from a nearby table. He walked toward his uncle. The other capos stayed seated, sensing the shift in power. The king had returned. "Dominic, please," Carlo stammered, backing up until he hit the wall. "I did it for the family, for us." "You did it for yourself," Dominic said. He tossed the knife onto the table in front of Carlo. "You have 2 choices, Uncle. The law of the street, or the law of the book." Dominic turned his back on him. He took Sophia's hand. "Come, Pichiridu," he said. "Let's go home." As they walked out of the restaurant, a single gunshot rang out behind them. Dominic didn't flinch. Sophia didn't look back. The morning sun hit the cliffs of Long Island, bleaching the grey ocean white. The war was over. Carlo Valenti had vanished into the Pine Barrens, and the Falcone ledger was safe in a vault only Dominic could open. Dominic stood on the balcony, staring at the horizon. He heard the glass door slide open behind him. "You're up early," Sophia said softly. She was wearing one of his white dress shirts, looking like a dream he wasn't allowed to keep. Dominic didn't turn. He reached for a manila envelope on the table and held it out. "Take it." Sophia frowned, opening the clasp. Inside was a passport, $50,000 in cash, and a deed to a small bookstore in Paris. "I made a promise," Dominic said, his voice rough. "You helped me. I let you go. Sophia Miller is a ghost, but this identity, it's a fresh start. No guns, no looking over your shoulder. You're sending me away." "I'm saving you," Dominic said, finally looking at her. His eyes were tortured. "The car is waiting." He expected her to argue. Instead, Sophia stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. She took the envelope and walked out. The silence she left behind was louder than any gunshot. 20 minutes later, the Mercedes was speeding toward JFK. Rocco drove in respectful silence. Sophia sat in the back, clutching the ticket to Paris. It was everything she had prayed for during 5 years of hiding. Safety. Peace. She looked down at the passport. Isabella Rossi. Just another mask. She thought of Dominic bleeding in the bathroom. She thought of the way they had walked into Bemonte's together, untouchable. "Rocco," she said sharply, "stop the car." "Miss, we're on a schedule." I said stop. The command was absolute. Rocco pulled onto the shoulder. Sophia stepped out, the wind whipping her hair. She looked at the airport signs, then back toward the cliffs. She realized she didn't want safety. She wanted him. "Turn around," she ordered, getting back in. "Take me home." Dominic was pouring his third whiskey when the bedroom door opened again. He didn't look up. "I told the staff not to disturb me." "I'm not the staff." Dominic froze. He turned to find Sophia standing there, the envelope gone, fire in her green eyes. "You missed your flight," he whispered. "I hate Paris," she said, walking straight up to him. She took the glass from his hand and set it down. "I'm tired of running, Dominic. I'm tired of pretending I'm not a Falcone. It's dangerous here. Being with me puts a target on your back." "Then let them come," she challenged, stepping into his space. "You need a partner who knows the code. You need a queen, Dominic. And I'm the only one qualified for the job." A slow smile broke through Dominic's stoic mask. He wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her flush against him. "You're really not going to leave, are you?" "Try and make me." Dominic laughed, a low, victorious sound, and captured her lips in a kiss that sealed their fate. The wolf had found his mate. And God help anyone who tried to touch her now. Wow, what a journey. From a quiet librarian hiding in the shadows to the queen of the New York underworld. Dominic thought he was just hunting down a mystery, but he ended up finding the only woman capable of bringing him to his knees. It's crazy to think that it all started with a simple lullaby in a dialect everyone else had forgotten. It proves that sometimes the things we try to hide are exactly what lead us to our destiny. I want to know what you think. Did Sophia make the right choice, turning that car around? Or should she have taken the money and gone to Paris for a peaceful life? Honestly, I don't think she would have ever been happy just selling books. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more mafia romance dramas like this. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. I've got an even crazier story coming next week involving a billionaire CEO and his secret bodyguard. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.